The story of the Saint family is one of the most famous missionary stories of our time. A boy whose father and fellow missionaries are brutally speared to death by a tribe of savage Indians known as the Waodani in Ecuador later returns to that same tribe with his mother and have an amazing breakthrough, bringing them to the Lord and bringing these savage killings to a close. This amazing story of redemption and forgiveness, however, does not end there. In 1994, after becoming a successful businessman, Steve Saint, now husband and father of 4, returns to the jungles of Ecuador on the request of the Waodani. Having become increasingly dependent on Western missionaries for help and aid, the Waodani asked Steve to train them to do these things for themselves to become more self-sustaining.
When the Waodani asked me to help them, I wanted to say no, because I couldn't imagine what I could do for them that more capable missionaries hadn't already done. But Dawa, who's my tribal grandmother, scolded me and said they weren't asking me to be a missionary to them. They wanted me to live with them as family, to help protect them from outsiders who they saw were dominating more and more of their lives. What they wanted me to teach them was the medicine thing, as they called it, and the tooth thing and the airplane thing. When I pointed out that all of these things were already available through missionaries in the area, they quickly responded that all the missionaries lived in other places and weren't always available when there was a need. Then as I explained to them that there weren't enough missionaries to provide all of these services to them in the way that they wanted, I realized finally what they were really asking. They wanted me to teach them to do the things that missionaries had been doing for them for years, so that they wouldn't be completely dependent on outsiders and so that they could take care of their own people's needs.
When you give a man a fish, you feed him for only a day, and you make him dependent upon you for food. The heart is not simply to give, but to train men to fish, and thereby feed them for a lifetime. Missionary efforts in the 20th century have had an incredible impact on the world, but many of those good-natured endeavors have hindered the ability of the indigenous church to share the joy of Jesus Christ with its own people. It is our greatest desire not to make indigenous believers dependent on Western help and aid, as the Waodani were at one point, but to empower them to become self-propagating, self-governing, and self-supporting. In its efforts to win the world for God, Christianity has often made spectators out of the very people it sought to reach. It is our goal to bring those indigenous believers out of the stands and onto the playing field of the Great Commission.
Just because indigenous people are low-tech doesn't mean that they're low IQ. They can learn how to do these things. They just need the right training and the right tools to do it.
The tools need to be reinvented to be more portable, maintainable, and affordable.
Medicine, dental care, optometry, community health programs, sanitation, and even computer use. All those things that missionaries typically do for indigenous people. We want to train them to be the dentists and the doctors and the midwives and educators and farmers and mechanics and pilots and anything else that will help them carry out Christ's Great Commission. And then we want to teach them to teach others to do it too.